Hey good people, it's Angel here. If this again is your first time ever seeing me, I am brand coach Angel and I help people build brands and businesses that do good and feel good. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my experience and how I traveled and lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil for 1 year. Brazil for 1 year. So just to preface, before I get too deep into this video, I want to let you know that this experience that I'm talking about is from 2016 and 2017. So in July of 2016, after I finished my graduate program, I moved to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where I lived and studied Portuguese for 1 year until roughly about June, almost 1 year, roughly about June 2017. And so I was able to do that experience through the Boren Fellowship. So I've kind of referenced this a little bit in some previous videos. So I definitely wanted to do a video diving more into the program and just diving more into what my experience was like abroad. So for those who are unfamiliar, the Boren, for short, Fellowship is a program that allows graduate students to live abroad. And most of the time you're doing language study. You can also do research or what's the word I'm looking for? Like internships and things like that abroad. So it's actually an opportunity for people who want to supplement their graduate education with study abroad. It gives you that opportunity to do that, and it will fund fellowships up to, I believe, a year. I think you can do as short as 6 months, but their preference is for people who want to stay for like a full academic year. So that was the bucket that I fell into to do the program. And so the program actually provides you funding to do the study abroad, and they give you stipends throughout the year while you're there. And I believe the stipends, I'm not sure if the amount has changed. When I did it, the stipend was up to about $30K a year to be able to study abroad. And so one of the caveats to the program is that they want you to study languages that are not commonly known. So you would not necessarily be able to study French or Spanish. But for me, I was able to study Portuguese, and people can study Russian. Well, now there's a lot of things going on in Russia and Ukraine. So there were people who were going to some other countries to study Russia. There are people studying Arabic. So languages that they want more people in America to know that aren't commonly known. So they prioritize those countries. Also, one of the things that you have to do in exchange for participating in the program is actually complete 1 year of service in the federal government in an area of national security. So there are a number of things that you can do that actually fulfill that requirement. I am in the process right now of doing the work I need to do to get a position to fulfill that exact requirement. They prefer for you to do it within, I believe, about a year or two after you return, but because of the pandemic and things like that, things were stretched out for people to complete that requirement. So though I've been back for some years now, I am in the process of right now completing that requirement. So it's, and I want to readjust a little bit of how I'm sitting here. So, it's a wonderful program for people who want to do it. I am going to include several links below in the description box for people who want to learn more. So what I'll put down there is the link to the actual website for the program. And I want to tell you this, even if you are not someone who is currently enrolled in a graduate program, you can still participate. You can enroll in a community college, or not a community college, but you can enroll in an online graduate program. That will count. There are a number of different ways that you can retain status as a graduate student so that you can participate in the program. So just keep that in mind if this is something you think you may be interested in. I know that there's a lot of discussion right now about taking work sabbaticals and just different opportunities to actually study abroad or live abroad. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for those of you who are considering that to explore. Also, for those of you who may want to do research for your dissertations or your master's theses, this is a great way to do that if you want to actually go abroad to complete that research. This is a great opportunity for that as well. So I will put links to the actual program website. I'm also going to put links to the school that I attended, because one of the things that you do have to do for language study is actually be enrolled in an actual university typically, or some sort of language school to get your language education. So I will show you what school I was enrolled in, because I've had people reach out to me that have wanted to study in Brazil and wanted to know those things. And I'll also share my Airbnb that I stayed in, because I stayed in an Airbnb the entire 11 months I was there. It was fabulous. It was walking distance from the university that I was attending. So that was absolutely perfect. And so speaking of that, I want to definitely share about my experience. So I lived about 20 minutes walking distance from the actual university that I attended. The university that I attended was called FAAP, F-A-A-P. I'm not going to say it all in Portuguese because it's a little difficult for me to pronounce, but the acronym is FAAP. I actually stayed across the street from a local university called Mackenzie. So that university also had a language study program, but it wasn't necessarily as rigorous as the one at FAAP. So I chose to go there, but I was across the street from a university. So that was pretty cool just for me, finishing undergrad, going into grad school right after, and then being able to do this program was a great transition for me. And then while I was in Brazil, I chose to live alone. So I lived by myself. I had my own it was a converted studio. It was really like a studio apartment they tried to convert to a 1-bedroom, but it was a really nice Airbnb and a nice apartment building. And so I had my own space and place to live. I will say, as far as the language study experience, living alone probably did hinder me a little bit when it came to actually picking up the Portuguese, because I knew absolutely no Portuguese when I went to the country. So what's really cool about Boren is that you don't have to have any background in that language. I did have language study background in Spanish. And so that's one of the reasons why I chose Portuguese, because those languages are similar, but contrary to what a lot of people may believe, they are very different. So to this day, my Spanish is all flustered and mixed up now because I studied the Portuguese. But I think because I stayed alone, when I was not in classes and when I was not out communicating with people, I would definitely go home and watch my American television shows and kind of just have an American world in my place. Because to be honest, to be in a country that was completely immersed with people who had a different culture and a different language could be very overwhelming at times. And so to kind of just have that reprieve to my own home was very important to me. But again, I do think it hindered me language-wise, because I know there were other individuals in the program who were actually living with Brazilians, and that helped them to improve their language skill abilities. So that's something to think about, but I will include the link to my Airbnb below. So if this is something you're thinking about, or you're visiting Sao Paulo, Brazil, I think the location of that Airbnb was awesome. It was close to train stations. I was walking distance to pretty much several grocery stores, several stores, walking distance to downtown. So it was just a perfect location for me. So I do have some notes here of some things that I wanted to make sure I went through. Some of the things that I learned. I wanted to go through some of the themes that I've learned from the program and how it just enhanced me and has shaped me as a person. So one thing is learning independence. When I went to Sao Paulo, that was my very first time living alone, and I've lived alone ever since. So that was a great experience to live on my own for the first time in another country and to be able to have my own space. Now the space was completely furnished, so I just came with my clothes and I was there, but I was completely independent. And so what the program does require of you is for you to come up with your own budget, for you to find your own university to enroll in. So they give you the money, but they want you to show them that you are completely capable of structuring your entire program on your own. So they don't give you a lot of support in regards to that. So that was something that I completely had to do on my own. I don't believe I reached out or found any other Borens to speak to before I went who could kind of like guide me. So I completely researched everything on my own, got in touch with the universities. To get my student visa, I had to have confirmation from the university that I was going to come there. So that was all things that I had to do on my own. So that was a big thing, just learning that process. And it's one thing to be independent in America, being a person that is an American and I can speak the language and I'm comfortable here. It's another thing to be independent somewhere where you don't really speak the language and you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So that was a big lesson of just learning to be resourceful and learning to take care of myself and figure things out somewhere else. The second thing I really have here is compassion. I now have so much compassion. I can't even explain to you. Like, words do not fully describe how much compassion I have for people who are coming to the United States and do not speak the language and are just coming here and getting acclimated. I have so much compassion for that because that experience taught me how challenging it is. And in America, oftentimes, we don't have those experiences. There's very few people that have those experiences of actually relocating to another country and having to completely start from scratch and not speak the language and not really know how to navigate all of the systems and processes that a country has. And so having that experience and having those difficulties, now I did have some help from my university when I got to the country to navigate certain things, but nonetheless, it was still very challenging. So I have immense compassion for people and patience for people who are experiencing that, because baby, it's tough, but a wonderful experience. What a wonderful experience, but it taught me compassion, also humility. Because being able to communicate and express myself is something that I take immense pride in, right? I love to write, I love to talk, and I take a lot of pride in being able to communicate with people and express myself. But it's almost like being in another country where you don't speak the language and you don't have a strong command of it. My confidence level was not as high because I didn't feel as confident in expressing myself. I almost didn't want people to know that I was foreign. And if I didn't speak, because Brazil is a diverse country, if I didn't speak, a lot of times people couldn't tell that I was not native to the place. So part of, like, sometimes even for safety reasons, I wouldn't speak too much because I'm like, I don't want people to know I'm struggling with the language. But then also I felt kind of embarrassed sometimes that I couldn't always understand what people were saying to me. And I had to ask them to repeat it several times and that kind of stuff. So it definitely taught me some humility. And as far as really seeing that, you know, a lot of your confidence comes from your ability to master a thing. And when you're learning a new language, you're starting completely from scratch, especially as an adult. And you're communicating with other adults, but you don't speak the same language. So those were some interesting experiences. I definitely remember having times where I was a little bit more reserved or less inclined to socialize and talk with people because I felt a little bit insecure about my language ability. What I also learned is a lot of other people feel insecure about their language ability. So I would speak to people because my Portuguese, at least in the beginning, wasn't so great. A lot of people would have to speak English to me and they would always tell me, I know my English isn't that great. And then they would start talking like perfect English. I'm like, your English is way better than my Portuguese. Feel good. You should feel very good about that. So that taught me some humility. I was a little more humbled for sure by that experience. Also patience. Anytime in my adult life that I am picking up a new skill, I have learned to be patient because a lot of times we want to be moving at lightning speed, right? We want to be able to move just as fast as we can move in things that we're very comfortable with. And learning a new language really taught me to slow down. It takes time to understand. It takes time to practice. There were some times where I had some exams and things in Portuguese that I didn't do so hot on. So I was like, okay, take your time, you know, give yourself some space, give yourself some grace to get through this process, right? So that was interesting. I also learned like language learning is truly on a spectrum. And what I studied in graduate school was, my program is called intercultural communication. So it was perfect. That was part of the reason why I wanted to study abroad for a year, but also the program is in the linguistics department. So I actually did a lot of study of how people acquire new languages. And what I learned, of course, is like there's something called the critical learning period, basically where children who are 0 to 7 pick up languages the easiest. And then after that, it's a little bit more challenging. And so, of course, I'm a grown woman trying to pick up this new language. So definitely just thinking about trying to translate English concepts or American language concepts to Brazil concepts and switching it, and just all the differences and complexities of picking up a language. I understood a lot more as an adult, and it just caused me to be more patient and just realize that it was a process. So those are some of the lessons that I learned, and I definitely want to also talk about some of my favorite things about Brazil. So I absolutely love the food was banging. And what's very interesting about Sao Paulo specifically is the food isn't super complex. It's not a lot of sauces. It's not a lot of craziness going on. It's simple food that is very well flavored and seasoned and just tastes amazing. So I was trying to do my vegan thing and I failed. I'm over the vegan thing now, but I was trying to do my vegan thing back then and I just failed miserably because the meat was so good. That churrasco was so good. That is Brazilian barbecue. It was amazing. It was amazing. So the food was great. I also enjoyed the weather was great. Sao Paulo gets a little cooler than some of the places that are up north in Brazil. So they do have a cooler season. And what's also interesting, if you didn't know, the season switch. So whatever season it is here in America, it's the opposite in Brazil. So when it was winter here, it's summer there. When it's summer here, it's like fallish weather there. So it didn't get super cold, but there was weather where I had to wear a light jacket, and that happens around the summertime here. Basically, it would be like a fallish weather there. So when I first moved there, it was a little nippy for a few months, and then around winter time, it got super, like Christmas is like blazing, you know? So really great weather, but I think the weather was kind of temperate. Loved it. Loved the weather. I love warm weather. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. It did rain, but not a whole ton. They do kind of have a raining period, but it wasn't crazy. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I enjoyed the nightlife as well. Sao Paulo, I like to compare Sao Paulo to New York. So it's a lot of buildings, very metropolitan, very industrial, whereas Rio is like Miami. It's beachy. People are beautiful. You know, people are beautiful everywhere in Brazil, but people are especially that have great bodies and they work out and they spend a lot of time outside. They have these great tans and stuff in Rio, which I spent a lot of time in Rio as well while I was there. So Sao Paulo is really businessy, really industrial. So I love the culture. The culture is gritty. I like the music. The Brazilian funk is great. Great parties. They party all night long. Okay, there. So literally you go to a party at 2 a.m. The party's going till 6 or 7. Like people just love to party pretty much every night of the week, but definitely on the weekends, they love to party. I got a chance to do the Carnival, which was amazing, which is in February. That was a beautiful experience. I got to go to some different states within Brazil, which was awesome, and just feel the culture of the different places. So I really enjoyed it there. There's a special place in my heart for Brazil. Also, the beaches were great. I got a chance to do some of the beaches in Rio. I got a chance to do some beaches in Bahia. I got a chance to do beaches just outside of Sao Paulo, like in the actual state of Sao Paulo. I got to do some different beaches. In Sao Paulo City, there isn't a lot of water. It's definitely more city, more buildings kind of vibe. But I love the beaches. I love the culture. It was just overall an amazing experience. I think for me, it was important to be somewhere that was kind of metropolitan. I didn't really want to be somewhere that was too different from the United States, which Brazil is different, but it's pretty metropolitan. It's pretty modern. It felt comfortable to me. I had a lot of the amenities I was accustomed to. So depending on the experience you're looking for, you can get it all. Now you can definitely get experiences that the lifestyle is completely different, maybe more simple, less technology. One of the young ladies that I had kind of grown close to that was also studying Portuguese went to Mozambique, and her experience was very different. They don't have the same level of infrastructure in Mozambique, of course, that they have in Brazil. So I remember kind of we will talk on WhatsApp, and we were kind of sharing our experiences, and she was kind of saying, you know, it was a little tough for her being there because she didn't have all the amenities and things that she was accustomed to there. So it was a little bit more challenging for her. So depending on where you are, that can influence your experience, but you have so many options, right? So if you wanted to study Portuguese, you could study, and I do not believe I don't think Portugal was one of the options, but you could study in Brazil, you could study in Angola, Cape Verde, you could study in Mozambique. So there's several places. There's some island that speaks Portuguese too. That's kind of, the name is escaping me right now, but lots of cool places that you have. So I would definitely encourage you to check out that experience if it's something that you're interested in. I answer questions. Anyone who reaches out to me about the fellowship, which people Google me, they find me, they reach out, I always set up appointments with them and talk and answer any questions that they have. So I'd be happy to do that for you as well whenever you are watching this video. My email address is below in the description. Go ahead and send me an email and we can set up some time to talk. I would love to share my experience with you and share some tips on how you can really make your application stand out and be accepted. So I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you got something helpful out of it. I hope that now you know a little bit more about an opportunity that maybe you hadn't heard about before. I also want to say that the Boren Fellowship also has a scholarship version for people who are in undergrad. I think I had vaguely heard about it in undergrad, but of course I didn't actually participate in the program until graduate school. So there are opportunities for undergrads to participate in the program as well. I am not positive about the requirements for that. If you still have to do your 1 year federal service, I would assume yes, but I'm not quite sure. But nonetheless, I encourage you to check out the program. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to apply. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like content like this, go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment with any of your questions. I'd be happy to do more videos talking about my experience. Like this video, and I will see you soon. Peace out.